He said, discussions on reproductive health must also account for economic realities as declining fertility rates mean fewer contributors to the National Insurance Fund, even as the number of pensioners grows. Miles. Perhaps, the resolving the unemployment rate would be a better suggestion. But to say that, Bahamians need to have more sex and have more children in order to resolve the national insurance issue is ridiculous. And we have a lot of stuff where people are saying some stuff that ain't making no sense. And Miles now is a part of that. But you know what? It didn't just go there. COI had a response to it. The coalition slammed Miles Roeder over his NIB remarks. Says Bahamians are not, because and their remark or their response to Miles Roeder is Bahamians are not breeding stock. It says the Coalition of Independents has strongly criticized Minister of Social Services, Information and Broadcasting Miles Roeder following his recent statement suggesting that Bahamians need to have more children to help sustain the National Insurance Board. In an impassioned statement, the COI called the minister's remarks disgraceful, asserting that it is unacceptable for any government official to urge citizens to increase the population in order to compensate for what they describe as decades of reckless government mismanagement. The COI said, Bahamians are not breeding stock to patch up the failures of reckless governments. We are a proud people and our children are not born to be sacrificed on the altar of political mismanagement. The group went on to reject the notion that NIB's financial troubles stem from a declining birth rate, saying NIB is not broke because Bahamians fail to have children. NIB is broke because governments for decades have used it like their own private bank. They borrowed millions upon millions. The controversy stems from a Tribune article in which Miles Roeder warns that the Bahamas' low birth rate poses a long-term threat to NIB's sustainability. He explained that the country's current birth rate is below replacement level, with only 1.7 births per woman, compared to the 2+% growth needed to maintain stability. According to the minister, NIB's financial health depends heavily on having enough workers contributing to support pensioners, noting that the ideal ratio is about 6 workers per retiree, a balance that has been slipping closer to critical levels. Still, the Coalition of Independents maintains that the real issue is not population size, but poor fiscal management and political misuse of the funds. Their statement calls for greater accountability, transparency, and responsible stewardship of the nation's social safety systems, rather than shifting the blame onto Bahamian families. As the debate continues, the question remains, is the sustainability of the National Insurance Board really a matter of birth rates or a reflection of how successive governments have handled the nation's finances? They screwed up our money. They screwed up our money. They screwed it up. They spent the money left, right, and center. They were like drunken sailors in the public place. Everybody was getting drunk. Till even one of the liquor stores one of the liquor outlets got the money to be used to invest with. And while we're talking about this, we have all these different things where they owe the Bahamian people money and they didn't pay. And you have a lot of these people on these different platforms who are talking, and they have hundreds of dollars that they owe the Bahamian people, and they did not pay. They did not return this money. Why did customs have to bail out of the NIB's money? And why are we building all of these other facilities out of the NIB's money and not replacing that money? Anyhow, let's continue. It says, deacon convicted of attempted incest blames drinking for behavior. Now, this one really rocked my head. Well, why we have a drinking deacon in the first place?